My Son, Art 493 by Crystal Ward. My case study was on my son Blake. For my case study, I chose my oldest son Blake. He just turned 11 years old last month, and he is in the 5th grade. I chose to focus my inquiry on 4 main areas. First, is my child performing at a developmentally appropriate level? 2, is he displaying age-appropriate techniques? 3, how important is the involvement of art in his classroom incorporation? 4, how important is art to this child? I decided to conduct my research for this study in several different ways. I conducted my own art project assignment with him. I observed him in a classroom setting 4 different times. And lastly, I conducted an interview with his primary teacher at school. Observation 1. For my observation, I went to Blake's school and I observed an instructed class project presented by Monica from the Museum of Northern California Art. The program came to the school and does an in-class art lesson to the students. On October 5th of 2018, they came and did a lesson creating collages of their ideal place to visit. It was a beautiful sunny day, approximately around low 70s outside, and they did the lesson inside with about 18 other students, 2 art teachers, and 2 representatives from the Monica program. They brought a collection of magazines and other publications and told the class to look through them all and create their idea as a perfect place to visit and what they would want to see there. I spent the time first seated in the rear of the classroom, listening and observing to the instructions that the 2 representatives were explaining to the students. Once the students began to work, I walked around and observed some of the students' work and asked a few questions what they were creating for their collage. I got some very interesting responses. There was one student who was creating an outer space world to visit. I thought that was a very unique idea. When I reached Blake and asked him what he was creating, he explained it was the beach, and that it was his ideal place to go after he just visited Santa Cruz with his grandparents and loved it so much. He appeared to be enjoying the project by a smile and enthusiasm he was demonstrating. After he concluded his collage, I asked him to tell me about it. He explained that I loved to see the waves and how they moved around in the water. I picked the big swirl. It would look like a fun to make in the sand on the beach, and this building because it reminded me of the sandcastle that me and my brother built. Just way better, haha. I also picked the seashell because it was really fun to search for them on the beach. There were some pretty ones. Last, I chose Peanut because I saw him at Santa Cruz too. He projected a lot of excitement when explaining his choice. I asked if he enjoyed the project and he replied, yes, I like everything that has to do with art. For my second observation, I conducted an individual project with Blake at home. I performed it on October 23rd of 2018. I did some research online to find an art project that I could ask him to do on his own. It was only about a week before Halloween, so I chose a YouTube video that is an instructional video on how to draw a zombie by Bob Ostrom. It was a sunny, warm day, and I asked Blake to sit down at the dining room table and watch the video and follow the instructions as I observed him. Provided him with a sketch pad and a pencil, just as the video instructed, and set a package of colored pencils next to that. He followed well with clear intent and enthusiasm and neatness and completed the zombie with articulation and appropriate technique. I spent time just watching and maintained minimal distractions and surrounding noise to ensure his focus would maintain on the instruction video. He paused the video several times throughout to catch up with the instructor was moving at a faster pace than he was. Once the video was concluded, Blake took more time to color and complete his picture. For my third, fourth, and fifth observation, it was a 3-part assignment. I conducted an observation on November 1st, 8th, and 15th. It was an art project in the classroom was doing to coincide with their 15th century performance they were putting on. The assignment students were going to make a 15th century clipper ship. On the first day, she explained that she was going to be a 3-week project. That day we were going to sketch their clipper ship, and then the following week they'd be painting with watercolors, and then lastly, they would be re-outlining their art with a black marker. She began by passing out a handout of some examples and drawing aid for the students and had several different ships. After she passed the paper out, she told the students that she wanted them to spend the next 5 minutes to discuss the similarities and differences in the ships. After the time passed, she called upon students to hear their responses. Blake raised his hand and contributed that all the ships had large sails on them. Other students added such things as the shape of the sails, the ropes, the ships were narrow, they had large poles holding the sails up, and how there were several sails on each boat. She then went on to discuss and exchange conversation about the history of the ships and what they were used for. She then proceeded by playing the students about a 7-minute video that was about the discussion they were having and other types of ships they would utilize in the 15th century. Once the video was concluded, she had a brief brainstorm discussion about what they wanted to draw their ships, whether it be coming, going, side view, and so on. She then passed out a large sheet of paper and asked them to begin their sketching. Once the students began to draw, I observed for a few minutes and let them all begin, then got up and walked around and quietly observed the students' art. I observed Blake, and he was very intently drawing a beautiful ship. We continued to work with the remainder of the hour, and then it was time to clean up. They placed all their work on a cart designed for art drying in the back of the classroom. When I returned on November 8th, I observed the second step, which was them using watercolors to paint their ships. When I arrived, they were just beginning. They each had their paint tray, brushes, and water at their desk. The teacher explained to them they were going to use the watercolors, and she wanted them to make sure not only to color their ships, but the surroundings. So the students went to work, and I walked around observing the students working. They all used great technique in the work. Blake chose to color everything but the sky in his picture. He used a technique that I didn't observe by any other students doing. He was mixing different colors to make unique colors. I asked him why, and he replied, the sails on old ships weren't white or brown. They were a mixture of them to make a cream color to be more time appropriate. I thought that was very advanced for his age to mix the colors were conceptually appropriate. He took a lot of time and did a good job compared to the other students' work. On my last observation on the 15th, I returned to the class for the last time to observe the final work of their ships. When I arrived, the teacher asked the students to find their art on the cart in the random classroom and return to their seats. She continued once everyone was seated and explained they were going to use a black marker to define the lines of their ship. She showed the class a few finished examples that she had from previous students. The students all began to work and finishing up their ships. I observed and interacted with Blake as he paid close attention to his details and went over all the lines with black marker. His finished work was very good, and in my opinion was advanced on a developmentally appropriate level, and he made more attention to detail than several of his classmates. In conclusion, after conducting several observations and an interview, I feel that Blake demonstrates above developmentally appropriate techniques of quality of work. According to the developmental theories of Victor Lowenfield and his influential work of Jean Piaget, he explains that a child's work reflects 5 domains: affective, social, physical, intellectual, and emotional growth. According to the age of 9 to 12, Blake should be in stage 4 of the development, the drawing realism stage, or the gang age. During this stage, the child should display and develop a realistic approach to the artwork. They should be able to use more natural and realistic features. I believe that Blake does this in both Figure 1, with the realistic features of his horse. Even though the intended image was a mythological unicorn, the body of the unicorn is still depicted with the characteristics of a horse as it should be. Additionally, in Figure 3, he demonstrated natural human characters even though the artwork was a cartoon character of a zombie. Lastly, in Figure 4 through 6, with his ship, when comparing his work to his classmates, he paid close attention to the detail and naturalistic image of the ship and its surroundings. His work overall is above level and is reflected by his work and attitude towards his performance. After observing and interviewing with his teacher, I found that art is an important aspect not only to his educator but himself, as well in the environment of his learning, has a rich availability for further education and encouragement to advance his skills. Lastly, Blake places a high value and importance on art. He gives an above average effort at his artistic talent and thrives for future advancement in his skills. For my additional comment, I also conducted an interview with his teacher that you can see pictured on the right. This is image 1, or figure 1, from the birthday card that I also referenced in my study about his picture of my unicorn.